Hey, friends, welcome back to Wisdom in the Wires, where we are guiding digital pilgrims to human flourishing. I'm Dr. Daniel Passini, and today we are talking about parenting and AI. AI is everywhere, from ChatGPT as a homework helper to Siri on our cell phones to YouTube recommendations to our gadgets that seem to talk back to us. As a parent, it can feel overwhelming to try to navigate this cultural shift that seems to be being pressed on us from every angle, right? And we have to ask ourselves, should we embrace it? Should we shield our kids from it? Should we be afraid of it? Right? How do we raise our kids in an AI world without losing those things that make us most human? See, as a pastor, as a philosopher, and as a futurist, I've spent years studying how technology shapes us as humans. As a dad myself of two young kids, these are things that I'm constantly wrestling with, that I'm trying to take all of the information, all of the research that I've accumulated and working to figure out how to apply that to my own home. You see, I think about their future of what their lives are going to look like in the decades ahead, and what can I do to best prepare them for life in the future, for what can I do to best prepare them to flourish. AI isn't just another gadget that we accumulate of all the things that we can get. It is a cultural shift that is happening, that is currently reshaping and will continue to reshape our education, our work, and our relationships. But here's the good news, that we as parents have more influence than any algorithm can ever have if we choose wisely, right? So here are some things that I'm doing as a researcher and as a parent that I'm considering and that I'm working to implement into my own parenting, and that I hope will help you as well. So, number one, AI versus brain power. So, the problem is that today kids are learning to rely on AI tools before developing the skill of critical thinking. And honestly, the impact is staggering. Really, there was a recent study from MIT entitled "Your Brain on ChatGPT: Accumulation of Cognitive Debt and When Using an AI Assistant for Essay writing task." And I'll put a link to this down below. But it found that when you regularly rely on artificial intelligence, also known as large language models or LLMs, it reprograms your brain and leads to long term cognitive decline. So, this is in particular what the study found. It looked at writing essays and found that reliance on large language models led to, one, weakened neural connectivity in our brains. It led to impaired memory recall, and it diminished sense of ownership over their own writing. So in essence, it's teaching the brains that they don't have to work, right? That so they and what happens when your brain doesn't start to work or doesn't keep working is that it eventually atrophies and it begins to break down, right? And so those neurons stop firing, and when they stop firing together, they stop wiring together. And this is Hebb's Law 101, right? And neurons that fire together wire together. But here's the good news that they found in that study is that if we use our brain first and then get artificial intelligence to assist us, it leads to better cognitive function overall and in the long run. So here's some things that they found that those who used their brain first and then artificial intelligence, they had stronger brain wide connectivity, they had improved recall and originality, and an overall level of deeper thinking. As parents, we have to help our kids to understand the importance of thinking first, then going to artificial intelligence for the assistance. Think of it this way: if our kids always outsource their thinking, they won't learn those important life skills such as resilience, curiosity, deep thinking, deep problem solving, things along those lines. And there's something that happens when we struggle through that creative process and or that problem solving process, right? That it's about who they become, who we become in that process, throughout that process, because something changes in us as we build that resilience to work through the difficult problems. And if they never face that struggle, they cheat themselves out of their own potential. And so here's a few action tips that you can utilize when thinking about utilizing brain power versus artificial intelligence. Encourage your kids to try first before asking AI. Do the work and then let AI check the work or refine the work. Next, you can treat AI as a teacher's assistant instead of letting AI be the teacher, right? And so finally, number three, you can ask, what did you learn? Not just what answer did you get? So these are a few action items in this first area of thinking that how can you uh, look at artificial intelligence and brain power? Next, I want us to look at authenticity over efficiency, right? See, it's tempting to use artificial intelligence to crank out things at speed, right? And for output over meaning and authenticity. And it's about teaching our kids the power of their own voice and owning their work as their own, right? That study that I mentioned just a moment ago found that 83.3% of those who relied on large language models were unable to quote even one sentence from the essay they had just written. 83.3% couldn't even quote one sentence from the article they had just written, from the essay they had just written, right? In contrast, on the other end of this spectrum, 88.9% of Google search or like search engine users and brain only users could quote accurately from their work, right? And so the ability to quote your work speaks to something deeper, right? It speaks to ownership. Ownership is a mark of authenticity. I own this. This is a part of me that is on this paper, right? Or on this screen or in this document. Those that relied on the large language models gave responses like 50-50 of I own part of it, the large language model owns half of it, half and half, right? Or 70% mine when asked about authorship. Brain only group, on the other hand, almost universally reported full ownership. And so this is important. Yes, AI can make us more efficient, can make us quicker, but at what cost? What is it costing us in the long run? If every paper written becomes a product of a large language model, we lose the uniqueness inherent in our humanness. What friends, family, employers, and faith communities will value most is who they are, who your child is, who they become as they were growing up, right? And so, not just what they can produce, but who they are as a person. And if all they care about is that they can produce, that's a toxic situation. If those people, if that's all they care about is what your child can produce, it creates this toxic situation, and that really becomes a whole other discussion on relationships, boundaries, and toxicity, right? But going back to what I said earlier, that it's about who they become in the process of creating authentic work, of overcoming those obstacles in creating that authentic work. And AI can create efficient and polished work, but there is beauty in imperfections. And there's this Japanese philosophy called wabi-sabi, and it centers on finding beauty in the imperfections, right? And our authentic work may not come as quickly and it may not come as efficiently as a product from artificial intelligence or a large language model. And it may not be as polished, but this is what it will be. It will be authentic. In a world of polished work, in a world of filtered photos and the projection of perfection, right? Embracing wabi-sabi will help our kids embrace authenticity over efficiency. And so here's a few actionable items and action tips for us as parents to think about living into this authenticity over efficiency, right? So celebrate authentic effort over polished AI results. I think this is one of the most important things that we can do is celebrate those things with our kids, but encourage them to write, to draw, to create without tech. So using paper and pens, pencils, things that are tangible artifacts that allows them to create, to draw, and to write that is not utilizing technology so that they can wire their brain in analog processes. Finally, ask, how does this reflect you? Right? Not just did you finish it or did you finish it fast, but how does this work? How does this creation, this essay, this art, this drawing, whatever it would be, how does this artifact reflect you as a person? And that's a question that I think is important for our kids to understand their authentic work that only they can create, that something comes from them, that it's uniquely them. And so ask them about that. How does this work reflect who you are as a person? Number three, we have to think about the future of work. So, as we are teaching our kids to use their brains first and the importance of authenticity and then of being authentic humans and creating authentic, genuine work, we also have to think about their future careers, right? That AI is reshaping the workplace even now. It's beginning to reshape those things, and it will continue this process over the next 10 to 15 years. And many careers won't exist in 10 to 15 years. Some of our kids are closer to that transition point than others, but that's the point of being a futurist, right? Is that it's thinking further down the road. So thinking about where your kids are and where they're going to be. So think about it. Routine tasks such as writing, accounting, document summary, calculations, probabilities, creating documents, document reviews, legal documents, reviewing permits and summarizing permits that can be hundreds of pages long. All of this stuff is being automated, right? That the career ladder is changing, that it's not going to be about starting at the bottom and working your way up, because the bottom automated routine tasks are being automated. And so those positions are being done away with. Um, AI can draft a business plan in minutes, but what it can't do is come up with the dream and the vision behind that business plan. And so the skills of the future are going to be dependent on us learning to lean more into our humanity. Here are some skills that will continue to hold value in the workplace in the future, and that are important for us as parents to instill in our children, right? Creativity, collaboration, leadership, emotional intelligence, communication, and wisdom, right? All of these things are attributes and virtues that our children will need to lean into in the workplace of the future. But if we continue to offload all of our thinking to artificial intelligence, we lose those cognitive functions as we discussed earlier. So, in short, the ones who will be most successful going forward are those who engage in lifelong learning. Let your kids in on that little secret that it will be a superpower in the future to be a lifelong learner. There's a futurist named Alvin Toffler who put it this way, and he said this over 50 years ago. He said, "The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn." So think about that. Alvin Toffler is his name, and he said it this way. I'm going to repeat it one more time. The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. So here are some actionable items that you can do to think about the future of work with your children. Expose your kids to creativity. Find ways to learn to play an instrument or be involved with music in some way. Um, Various forms of art. Try drawing, sculpting, painting, pottery, various things that are art forms, right? And then fun problem solving puzzles. Expose them to these different creative avenues to help them build those creative neural pathways in their mind. Two, build collaboration skills. Think about group projects or family problem solving games. Find ways to work on problem solving and building collaboration skills where they are working with others to achieve a goal of some sort. And third, teach adaptability. Remind your kids over and over that it's okay to learn new tools as the world continues to change, right? Teach them this. And as parents, we have to repeat it over and over until we are tired of hearing it. Then we're almost halfway there, right? So we have to keep repeating this over and over and over and over that it's okay to learn new things. It's okay to learn new tools and new processes, new information as you continue to grow older and as the world continues to change. So, number four, I want us to think about that even though we have some actionable plans to move forward and some things to think about, some things to apply to our children's lives, and that we can start talking with them about and teaching them about and working with them on, that there are still some challenges ahead, right? That artificial intelligence is going to continue or has the propensity to widen the inequality gap, right? That without sufficient upskilling and access to training, artificial intelligence could widen that economic gap, right? Research indicates that women and less educated workers are disproportionately in roles highly exposed to AI related disruption. So, women and less educated workers are the most vulnerable to these AI changes and disruptions, right? Also, another challenge is bias. Is that AI is still it still has a tendency to show bias. There's numerous reports of people being arrested because police um outfits used an AI software to try to find the perpetrator of a crime, and they arrest the wrong person for the crime. And so it's still showing bias for minorities. It's still showing bias towards women, towards various things. But AI is programmed by humans who have bias within themselves. And so that is what we have to still work on, is the bias of AI. Another challenge that we're going to face is productivity burnout, right? As everything becomes more efficient, right? More productive, do this, create more. It will be a race to continue to do more and more at the cost of ourselves. There's a book called The Burnout Society where he goes into this, that our digital productivity, right, our achievement society is causing us to burn out because we are continually trying to achieve more. We're continually trying to produce more. And I think this will only get exacerbated as AI becomes more prominent, because uh, if we continue to compare ourselves to others who are producing X amount more, we will feel like we need to produce X amount more to keep up with the Joneses on the business market or with income or with productivity, right? So that could lead to productivity burnout. Another challenge would be some ethical challenges, right? Um, that we need AI governance. Like that's just common sense, really, but we don't have anything in place there yet. We need AI governance and people from every sector of society, from faith, from philosophy, from politics, from parents, from teachers, from the education realm, right? We need people from every realm of life to weigh in on how this cultural shift is impacting our lives, especially when it comes to data, when it comes to privacy, when it comes to compliance, and when it comes to accuracy, just to name a few of the things that it needs to oversee and that we need to make sure that it's being governed properly, right? And not necessarily by the government, but our governments are going to have to step into place and make sure that people's data and privacy are protected in this, that copyright laws are protected, right? And so these are things that we're going to have to think about. These are challenges that we're going to have to face in the days ahead. So here are some practical steps that we as parents can take today, right? One is create tech boundaries. AI is a tool that can be used, but within limits. Set limits, set those rules, boundaries, and expectations of what that looks like to use artificial intelligence. Number two, practice co-use. Try new AI tools with your children. Sit down together and work through it. Try it out. See what it is. Ask questions. Model curiosity and discernment for your children so that they can see it, so that their mirror neurons activate and they see how you are interacting with it so that they can begin to interact with it, one, with curiosity, but two, with discernment. Three, we have to teach them ethics, right? That we can ask, should we, not just can we, right? I love that scene in Jurassic Park where Jeff Goldblum is saying, your scientists were so caught up with asking, can we do this? They didn't ask, should we do this, right? And pretty soon we're going to have this T-Rex monster that's going to be chasing us down. And not to say that AI is going to take over the world. I'm not trying to talk of like a doomsday apocalyptic scenario, but AI is going to be this monster per se that disrupts our lives on multiple levels if we are not interacting with it ethically, morally, theologically, philosophically, politically. We have to look at it from all of these avenues with an open mind, but also with wisdom and discernment. And finally, another thing that we can step into as parents that's a practical handle for us is anchoring identity. Remember to remind your kids that their value comes from being made in the image of God and living into that authenticity, right? That it's not about how efficiently they can work, but it's about how authentic they can be in the days to come. See, AI isn't the enemy, but it's also not neutral either. See, it's a tool, and like any tool, we can use it for redemptive purposes or corruptive purposes. Our job as parents isn't to raise the most efficient kids, but the most authentic ones. Our calling is to raise kids who can think, feel, believe, and create in ways that no algorithm ever could. You see, in an AI world, the most human thing that we can do is instill virtues like love, wisdom, justice, courage, temperance, right? Those virtues that are timeless within ourselves, within our humanity. And we have to teach them to use those things and live creatively and adaptively in this world that's ever changing in front of us. So, hey, if you found this helpful, I encourage you to hit like, subscribe to the channel, and share this with another parent who's navigating AI with their kids. And let me know in the comments below, what's your biggest question about parenting in an AI world? All right, friends, hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.